So let's get our guitar tuned up. The first thing I'll say about tuning your guitar is at the end of the video, we're going to show that the way to do it is with a tuner. Okay? So, we'll talk more about that later, but the reason why the video is a little longer is because every guitar player should know how to tune their guitar without a tuner, even though at the end of the day you do use a tuner. Okay? So, so let's get started right away here. Let me grab a pick. In the previous video, we learned about the notes of the guitar. Okay? So let's do a refresher course here. So the notes of the open string standard tuning. So the notes of the strings are E, A, D, G, B, and E. Okay? Now you need some sort of starting point. A lot of bands and a lot of tuners will actually use the A note, and we'll use A 440 hertz. Okay, that's the frequency of A. So we're not going to bother with that. We'll just leave it. We'll just say we're just going to start with E. Okay. You can, you'll eventually, like I said, you'll use a tuner to get that starting E note. If you didn't have a tuner, you could either use a piano and kind of match the pitch with this E as a piano or another instrument that you know is correct. Or you could have somebody that has perfect pitch, which I don't. Okay, so let's just assume your open E string here is the right note. Okay, so we're going to start from E. Now, if we start from E, how do we get A correct, which is the next note down? Well, what we do is we tune the A string to the lower E string. We tune it so that those two strings are in tune with each other. Well, how do we do that? We do that by finding the A note on the low E string. So, remember previously from our previous video, the notes on a keyboard, on a piano, well, it's the same on a guitar. So, if we start from an E note, what's the next note after E? Well, if you think of a piano, it would be F, because E has no sharp, right? So if we go E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. So there we go. There's our A note. So again, if you've seen what we've done, we know that the next string is the A note. So we're just finding the A note on the E string, which we know it's in tune. Okay, so we found A here, we know it now. So now if you play these two notes together, they should sound the same. So how do we get them to sound the same? Well, that comes with practice. Okay, so when they're far apart, you can hear it. It's when they start to get close to each other that you might have a little trouble kind of figuring it out. So let's detune A and let's get it. So here's my A note here. Let me get rid of the pick. So you can hear they don't sound right, do they? So let's start pulling that string up a bit. And you can hear it when they come together. Now, when you get really close, you'll hear kind of a wavering, like a fluctuation in the frequency. And it's when that fluctuation almost goes down to zero, like you don't hear any fluctuation, that's when you're very close to having the notes the same. Okay, so you can kind of hear it there. You probably wouldn't have been able to hear it through the mic, but practice that at home. Lots of times new guitar players will be turning it and way high. sometimes what I do when I was young to find the notes is to go up, go up and down the E string here, and then you can find where you are on this string. So let's tune this down, and so let's go down here. So here I am on the G note. Remember, if we start with E, F, F sharp, G, there I can tell that this string is actually on G, but we want it on A, so that's how we know if we go up here, it's way low. So that's how we know we need to bring it way up, and we'll get it back up to A. So that takes a little bit of practice. In this day and age with tuners, it's a lot easier. Back in the day, this would take a long time. Sometimes bands would sit, and especially if they were kind of maybe didn't have the best ear that was possible, it took them a long time to tune. If I would have, when I was younger, if we would have had tuners, oh my goodness, life would have been so much easier than it is now, like a lot of things. So anyway, okay, back to tuning the guitar. So here we got the E string. We know that's good. We've moved up the fretboard with the notes, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing with the A string. Now we've got the E string and the A string in tune. We're going to do the same with the A string. So if you start with A sharp, B. Now B doesn't have a sharp, if you remember from the previous video. So we go straight to C. C, C sharp, D. So now the third string is D. So we're looking for the D note on the second string. So we want to hear the same note. Obviously the guitar is already in tune, so that sounds perfect actually. Now you'll notice a pattern here. You'll notice when we did that with the first string, it was the 5th fret that it was that matched the second string's A, so the two A's together. That was the 5th fret. You'll notice that on the second string it's the 5th fret as well. It just so happens that the 3rd string is the 5th fret as well, and then the 4th string is actually the 4th fret, and then again it's the 5th fret. So this is a pattern, and new guitar players are probably not going to do this very much, but this is one of the many patterns that you're going to learn on the guitar, okay? So this pattern is 5th fret, 5th fret, 5th fret, 4th fret, 5th fret. So just to review, remember what it is you're doing. We'll start again on the first string. This string's note is E, and we know the next note string open is A. So you're trying to find the A on this first string and matching the two. So those are both A's. So that's how you know it's in tune. Now, once you do that through the whole guitar, you're going to have everything in tune. And then you can play a chord, and you'll eventually get pretty good at once you learn chords, you'll be able to hear if it's in tune. This is in tune. Now, some problems with that way of tuning your guitar. What's the problem? Well, let's say you're new to learning the guitar and you don't quite get this one perfect. You don't quite get the first one perfect. It's a little bit off. Well, once you use the second string to tune the third string, then that's going to be a little bit off too. And maybe when you tune that one, you get it a little bit off as well. So all of these tiny mistakes are going to get amplified as you go down the fretboard. And that's why they all have to be perfect in order to get it in tune. And that's why, as well, you'll notice that a lot of experienced guitar players won't tune their guitar that way. That's just kind of the way that beginners and maybe intermediates used to tune their guitars, is by doing that. A lot of guitar players would just play a chord, and they'll try and hear if the guitar is in tune from the chord, and they'll know, okay, I need to I need to turn this note or do something with that note. So remember that there is problems with that. Another way that you can tune your guitar that I used to do without tuners is I would tune everything to the low E string. Okay, so obviously the first one would be the same, but now I know the third string is D, right? So I just find D on my fretboard here. So E, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, E, F, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D. There's D right there. So now I'll just use this D to tune together with that D. And then I know the next string is G, so I'll use, this is G right here on the 3rd fret. Now, the only problem is that now you're dealing with octaves. So they're the same note, but they're an octave apart. So that can be a little tricky for new guitar players. But anyway, the 5th string here is B, so that's B right there. And then you would just do these 2 strings because they're both E, so you can just, but they're again an octave apart. Now, that takes a little bit more practice. It's a lot better because you're tuning everything to one string, so there's not that multiplication of errors that can happen. So that's one way to tune your guitar. Now, there's used to be a way where guitar players would use harmonics. Again, what you're doing is you're going on the 5th fret, halfway between the 5th fret and the 6th fret, halfway between the 7th and 8th fret. And you just go in between there. You'll note, as you learn guitar, there's places, songs where guitar players actually use harmonics in songs. But that's how some guitar players used to tune their guitars, with harmonics. And again, you're listening for that waver. You're listening, once it's close, it'll waver. And then once you hear that frequency kind of stop wavering, then you know you're really close or you're there. But again, you still have that same problem as you go down the fretboard. It will multiply any mistakes. Okay, so I think we understand the basics of how to tune a guitar without a tuner. Now let's deal with a tuner. Okay, so here we have a tuner that's on my phone actually. This is called Guitar Tuna. As you see, it's a free app that you can get for your phone. This video is not sponsored by them at all. It's just something that I've happened to have on my phone. It's free. Now, a couple of things. You can see that all the strings are named already, right? So you see the E, A, D, G, B, E. Right? As I talk, it's trying to tune my voice here. Now, if you wanted to get a chromatic tuner, you would have to pay more. Now, we're going to deal with chromatic things later. Right now, we'll just stick to standard tuning on your guitar, okay? So here we go. Let's tune my guitar. We'll start with the E, the low E. And then when you get it in tune there, it gives you the green light. Most tuners will be similar. Let's move up the notes here. Oops. Okay, there we go. Your guitar is in tune. A couple things I wanted to mention. First thing is that you'll notice that I tuned the guitar a couple times. I started with the low string, tuned them all, and then went back and tuned it again. Whenever you're adding tension or relaxing tension from the neck, it will put the other strings out of tune. So you're not going to be fully in tune until you're making just final adjustments. If your guitar is quite a bit out of tune, you'll have to tune it a couple times. Believe me, once you become professional at this, it'll only take you a minute. Like under a minute, you have the whole thing tuned. You'll see professional guitar players, they stand on stage and they have the whole guitar tuned in a matter of seconds. So that's one thing. You'll have to tune it a couple times as you're putting tension or releasing tension on the neck. The other thing is when you're tuning a particular string, you always want to be coming up from below and bringing it up to the note. The reason is if you come up, if you're above the note and you bring it down, you're actually loosening the string, and it can actually loosen more as you're playing, and then it'll go out of tune. So you always want to, and you'll notice that's what I did when I tuned the guitar on the tuner, is you come up from below. So if you're too high, you want to bring the note down below where you want to be and then bring it up. Now, this is something it might take you a little while to figure out, and you'll remember later. So that's one thing, just bring it up from below. So there's lots of different tuners you can get. I know for playing live, I think it's the Boss white chromatic tuner. That was an awesome tuner. There's also tuners that you can get that clip onto the end of your guitar. Those are great. And then, like I said, the free tuners that you can get on your phone, or the ones you pay for, those are great too. And then you always have it with you whenever you need it. I've used it many times. I've used it at work. I've used it at somebody's house. Those are awesome. So we'll leave it there. You're fully qualified now to tune your guitar in standard tuning.